Hello friends, I'm Lady Lilia, and in this video I'm going to talk about Vampyr, a new game that was just released on PC and console, and I want to just share my thoughts to hopefully help some people out there who are thinking of purchasing the game but not sure if it's for them or not. Maybe this video can dispel some interesting beliefs about the game and maybe prove some points and better explain what the game is all about and what to expect when you jump in. I have not completed the game yet, but I do have a really good idea of what the game is. I think I'm about 1/4 through the game. I've been playing for about 6 hours or so, maybe a little bit more than that, and I'm just at the Whitechapel part of the game, which is really where you can start exploring and kind of moving on from the main story. It's that point in the game where you're like, okay, I'm starting to be a badass kind of a thing. First, I'll talk about my favorite things about Vampyr and kind of what I was expecting when I came into the game, or before I bought the game, versus what I actually experienced when I started playing. My initial hope for the game was that it would kind of fill the gap for a vampire game like Bloodlines. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is a game that I played back in the day on my channel, and it is one of my all-time favorite RPGs. Not only just is it a good vampire game, but it is a really awesome RPG, highly underrated, and if you haven't played it yet, I suggest that you play it. But there hasn't been like a really good vampire RPG since Bloodlines, at least that I'm aware of or that I played. And Vampyr actually really does a good job of creating that feeling of being a vampire in a video game. The main differences between Bloodlines and Vampyr is, in my opinion, that in Bloodlines you kind of get to create your character from the beginning, so it's kind of like an open D&D type game where you can, pick your name and pick your race and pick your class and be finicky with your stats and all that stuff. But in Vampyr, it's much more of a linear experience, and this isn't a bad thing, but it's more of a role-playing game in that you are playing the role of Jonathan Reed, who is the main protagonist in Vampyr, and so you don't actually get to create him, but you do get to make choices with him and play through his story, and through your gameplay you get to shape the entire gameplay world, and also shape Jonathan as well after he becomes a vampire. I will try and not have any spoilers in this video. Like I said, I haven't completed the game, so anything I might talk about will be in the very first portion of the game, and it will mostly be about mechanics and stuff like that I've experienced and learned about, and hopefully it helps you guys figure out if you want to play the game or not. So for those expecting it to be a replacement for Masquerade Bloodlines, I would say that it isn't a direct replacement, but it is a really, really good counterpart to that game, and I think that it really captures the idea of being a vampire even more strongly. So I would say that Vampyr is a better game at capturing the feeling of being a vampire, like the desperation and all the side effects and the bad side of what you actually have to go through emotionally and physically, and how the world reacts to you is much more vivid and detailed than it is in Bloodlines. Of course, Bloodlines is a much older game, but Bloodlines is a lot stronger in other ways. It's hard to compare the two, but they both have their strengths and they both have their weaknesses, but this is about Vampyr, so I'm going to talk about specifically Vampyr's strengths and weaknesses. If you're interested about that, you probably already know what Bloodlines has to offer anyway, and I don't really need to explain that to you. So Vampyr is a game where you are a newly turned vampire, former doctor or surgeon, Jonathan Reed, and you kind of start the game just blown away. Excuse me, my nose itches. Oh god. You kind of start the game just blown away by how Jonathan Reed is so uncomfortable and new at being a vampire, and in my opinion, the game does a really phenomenal job at making the player aware of the feelings that a vampire might have, like when you're just desperately thirsty for blood, or when you're faced with kind of a moral conflict of do I kill this guy or do I not kill this guy? What are my consequences, etc. And the game does a really interesting job of creating consequences for those actions either way. So, for example, if at the beginning of the game you're faced with an option to kill a guy or feeding on him, which, as far as I'm aware, in Vampyr, you cannot feed on someone without killing them. At least that's what I've experienced so far. So when you are choosing to feed on a human, it means that you're going to take their life. And so if you take their life, then that area or district in the game changes and kind of starts falling into disrepair. And that's kind of the consequence that it has on that feeding on people has. And that if you're going to go down the line of feeding on people in your playthrough, you're kind of expected to sort of be like an evil or chaotic, whatever you want to call it. That's kind of like the evil path in the game if you start feeding on people. You also have a choice to not feed on people and balance your blood needs in other ways, which are available in the game through abilities and potions. And you can feed on rats just like in Bloodlines. You can also feed on your enemy, so there's hostile vampires and creatures and humans in the world that are just out to get you, and though killing those people do not cause consequences, but you can feed on them as well to get blood. So if you choose to be nice and not actually kill any major characters by feeding on them, then you won't get as much experience, so the world might be harder for you to deal with. But the districts and the worlds in the areas in the game will be in less chaos, therefore there will be less obstacles, I guess, and there will be more quests available to you because you're not killing people off. So it's kind of a balance, and I'm not really sure. I'm kind of, in my playthrough, I'm on the line right now as to where I want to go, but I did make the decision to kill somebody, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to continue down that route. However, it's really interesting. I'm at the point in the game where I am thinking of going back to a previous area and causing chaos there and feeding on some people just to kind of see what happens, and I think that's a lot of fun in the game. And speaking of balancing, I want to talk about another topic too that is really interesting to me in Vampyr is the dialogue system in the game. First of all, there's a lot of interesting NPCs. All of the NPCs you talk to are very unique and interesting and realistic, and the voice acting's awesome also. But they all have these branching dialogues where you can interact with people and learn more about each person. And the more you unravel about each person's personality and background, the more kind of little bloopy question marks you unlock on their character sheet. And if you find out all the information about them and learn about their health, and if they're not sick, all these other factors come into play to kind of show what that NPC is worth in blood and experience. So if you learn everything there is to know about one person and you decide that you're going to cure them if they're sick, and if they're, super healthy and you've unlocked all of the dialogue options and you know everything about them, if you kill them, you will get the maximum amount of experience. And this chunk of experience you get from feeding on someone like that is huge in comparison to just going out and killing bad guys or even doing a quest. So you will advance in levels much faster if you kill people, or if you're an evil vampire, than if you don't kill people and are a nice vampire. So, however, if you kill people all the time and get really powerful, also more chaos ensues because that district level goes down. So it really is a balancing thing, and I think that is a really cool way to do it. It's awesome. I think it would be really, really interesting to play like a totally nice vampire, a totally nice Jonathan Reed, which really does make sense for his kind of personality. But also, you could argue that he is in desperation because he's a vampire and he doesn't know what to do, and so then, he turns evil, which is probably probably where I'm going with my playthrough, let's be honest. It's usually what I do in games anyway. But really hats off to the developers for giving the player that choice, and also for making such a complex system behind the feeding, and just like the vampire mechanics are just so cool. Of course, there's other vampire mechanics. Another really cool thing is the combat. You guys are probably wondering, what's the combat like? The combat is really fun so far. I've been using a keyboard and mouse on PC, and I've been told that using a controller is better, but I haven't been having any problems with keyboard and mouse, aside from maybe a couple things that I didn't realize. I had to look up the buttons because some stuff wasn't obvious. And there's a couple UI glitches where sometimes I can't use the cursor after leveling up, I think it was. But it's very minor stuff. But in general, the combat's really fun. It's easy. It's the kind of a game where you get like 4 abilities to use, and then an ultimate ability at level 10, and then you have passives and stuff like that. You can unlock as many as you want, and you can switch them out depending on what situation you want. But in general, I've been really loving the combat. I love the dodge mechanic. It's so fluid and so nice, and whatever you're doing, it interrupts, like even if you're swinging or whatever, immediately you dodge. Oops, sorry. You immediately dodge, and it's really important. Dodging is everything in Vampyr. It will keep you alive, and every time you dodge, it takes some of your endurance or stamina, and so you have to kind of manage that as well. And then you also have a blood pool, which of course everyone is familiar with from Bloodlines, which you fill various ways that I explained earlier. And that pool casts your vampire abilities. And of course you can pick a multitude of vampire abilities as well, and they are really fun. And not only that, you also have main hand weapons and offhand weapons, and there are various weapons in the game, from two-handed maces to scythes to swords to axes to knives, machetes, and different kinds of firearms as well. And not only that, you can upgrade every weapon and at a crafting bench, which brings me to another thing in the game. The safe houses, which is an area for Jonathan to rest, and this is where you spend your experience points on skills or level up. You also craft there, but not only upgrading your weapons from junk that you find and loot you get from the world, which is very addicting, by the way, kind of like Fallout. You also can craft serums, which you yourself can use. So there's like a blood potion serum, a health regen serum, and many more that I haven't actually unlocked yet. And you can also make cures for NPCs, which is another way to balance the health of the districts in the game. So again, it just adds to that complex mechanic of kind of managing the world. So I guess in a nutshell, there's a lot of different kinds of gameplay in Vampyr. Of course, the main one is just being a badass vampire and running around and using your awesome, super cool vampire abilities to kill everyone and zip around in the shadows. But also, there's a lot of dialogue, and there's a lot of just generally, you feel kind of like you're in control of the world really well. And the way that the world changes is directly impacted by what you do and who you cure and who you talk to, and your actions, who you kill, etc. Who you feed on and who you kill, or just who you kill in general. Yeah, there's also a lot of side quests and little like secret type items to find in the game that lead to side quests, or maybe you'll accidentally sell something that belonged to an NPC. I might have done that. But you can also find random items like a necklace that may or may not be useful. You can choose to keep it, or you can choose to salvage it for parts, which you can use to upgrade your weapons, and etc, etc, etc. So it's a lot of that. And it's honestly really, really good fun. I haven't been so kind of dragged into a game in a really long time. And going back to the point of, will this game kind of replace Bloodlines for me? No. And the reason I say no is because Bloodlines is still a much different game. But Vampyr is rich in story, extremely, exceedingly rich in gameplay in many different aspects. It's very unique and fun. It's just legitimately fun. The combat is fun. Making Jonathan get stronger in whichever way you want is fun. Managing the world is fun. I can't think of anything in the game that's not fun. I haven't run into any game-breaking bugs either on PC, which I was worried about. The main issue that I have run into is the loading times are long, which will probably be patched, unless it's just my fault. I don't know. But that's it. Everything else has been perfectly flawless. The game looks beautiful. The atmosphere is gorgeous, and the music is so appropriate. And it fits so well, and I don't know. The voice acting is phenomenal, especially Jonathan's voice. I love his voice, and every NPC that I've talked to, I have been impressed with, and I haven't felt like anything is out of place. And I really think that they went above and beyond in this game. I might just be talking for because I'm really hyped about the game right now, but I honestly think I'll have these same opinions later on. And I think that if you are looking for a vampire game, and, if you really loved Bloodlines and you really love games where you could be a vampire and where you get to make choices and kind of just shape the world around you and either help it or let it spiral into chaos and take everyone down with you, I think you'll love this game. I think that everyone that is looking for something like this, whether you like, one of the mechanics or two of the mechanics, or even if you don't really like vampire games, this game could get you on board. It is that fun, in my opinion. But let it be said that some people are definitely going to disagree with me. This game is one of those games, I think, that is not going to be for everyone. I did a similar video to this one when Kingdom Come Deliverance came out, talking about why I recommended the game. And I feel like this game has a lot of similar aspects to it where some people will be upset, for example, that you can't create your own character like in Bloodlines. And, you have to play as Jonathan Reed, and maybe it's not open world enough or whatever. I don't know. Whatever the reasons might be. Every game is not for everyone, like I always say, but definitely give this game a chance. This game is a really good game, and in my opinion is worth the money. There's a lot of gameplay there and a whole hell of a lot of depth. Really fun gameplay. It's just freaking awesome. That's all I have to say. I seriously think this is one of my favorite games of 2018. And I mean, I have a couple favorites. I'm sure you can guess what the other one is. But this one is really, really far up there. Seriously. So get out and enjoy. And if you don't want to buy the game for yourself, you can watch my Let's Play. It's going on right now. Hooray for self-advertising. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this helped you in some way, whether you're thinking about watching the game in the Let's Play or you're thinking about getting the game for yourself. I haven't actually played the game on console, but I assume it's just as good if the PC version is phenomenal. I'm sure the console one is amazing as well. So if you're worried about mouse and keyboard versus controller, from what I've heard, if you like using controllers, just go with controller. But if you're like me and you prefer to use mouse and keyboard, there is no issues whatsoever using mouse and keyboard, and I think it's perfectly fine. So there you go. Thank you, friends. I'll see you in the next video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Vampyr, and if this video helped you out, I would love to hear about it. I'll see you soon for another video, friends. Bye-bye.